in their mind, there are players that they can bring in here and immediately have a good impact here. And then obviously on the other side of this for Chicago, I mean, come on, Ben Johnson's just doing what he saw in Detroit and what he did in Detroit. Get some protection, and I can run whatever the heck I want to run, right? So he's going to be able to do that and address it. And look, we can just keep going back to the Super Bowl as just like the perfect example of how you want to build a team. Credit to Howie Roseman and the coaching by Nick Sirianni in that game, right? The way they built that team, that championship roster, is how a lot of teams are trying to replicate. And it's not a secret. We've all known that that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Except I think this team truly highlighted that importance.
Yeah. So this is what's kind of also really cool about having Ben Johnson with the Chicago Bears is that sometimes you have you get kind of become a head coach from so many different sides, so many different levels of experience, years in the league, a rising star that kind of goes through the roof, and then you get the job. Maybe you're in college, whatever it may be. But I think with Ben Johnson's trajectory, specifically with the Lions, what he was part of building there, and make no mistake about it, like his fingerprints are all over what they were doing and building with Detroit, as well as the teams that he was playing against, right? Like he's gone up against the Kansas City Chiefs. He's gone up against the 49ers when they were the Super Bowl contenders, like literally went to the Super Bowl. Like he's gone up against so many different iterations of great teams, average teams, good teams, really great teams that can't quite get there, so he has such different levels of experience going up against great defenses, especially going up against a team like the Kansas City Chiefs when they were a top defense in the NFL. Like, so he has so much depth of experience there, and he's now bringing that knowledge and that experience that not all coordinators have. You have some coordinators who have a ton of experience, on either side of the ball, but I think in terms of like what the NFL needs right now, what because the NFL, I just made a video about this the other day about how the NFL is honestly constantly changing. Every time we think this is the way it's going to go, something changes. We were in such a heavy offensive era and wide receiver, and now we're kind of going back to more running. And, now it's definitely more all about the trenches and the O-line and the D-line. And, I joked, that seems like that's the way it's going to be for a while, but make no mistake about it, maybe in the next few years, it's not going to be that at all. People are going to be like, you don't really need a pass rush. That's not as important. What you really need is corners or something, whatever it may be, safeties. And it's just things are always constantly changing, but the way how offense is run right now today and should be for at a minimum at least the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, like Ben Johnson is going to be at the top of the list of guys that will know how to do it and know how to build it from the ground up. And the cool thing about the Bears is that they're more, it's like maybe the full foundation isn't there just yet, but there's still a ton of stuff. I like to use it as like a deck analogy, which I also used kind of recently, where it's like for anyone who's ever had like a deck or been on decks, like sometimes you just got to replace pieces of wood. You got to replace it, and you don't rip down the whole deck. And obviously, like, it's on a spectrum. Sometimes you do got to rip down the whole deck. Sometimes you got to replace like 5, 6, 7, half of it, whatever it may be. And that's the cool thing about the Bears, is that there's still so much to like about the Bears. So you're having Ben Johnson go into this situation, like in a lot of ways, it's almost what Nick Wright said last season. But it's almost like he was a season too early, excuse me, where he said, listen, this team is actually so much better than people realize, because, and that's why he was kind of saying about, like, this is the best spot for Caleb Williams, and you're going to enter Caleb, and I forget how many wins they had that year, 6 wins, whatever it was, 7, 8 wins, and so you're going to bring in Caleb, and this team is drafting so high, and it's not actually their pick, and logically it sounded pretty decent, actually. And you guys know I always try to poke holes in someone's logic if I think it's illogical, and logically there was some truth to it. And in a lot of ways, I actually think that this is closer to the reality. That's why I'm not saying, the Chicago Bears, they're going to the Super Bowl and Caleb is going to be an MVP candidate, because that's too far to the extreme. But I think this team was such a mess, and yet it was still relatively speaking, held together. And I think that when you bring in a coach like Ben Johnson, and again, he's really impressed me every step of the way. Really, really, really. And I've always been super high on Ben Johnson, but I did, when we were just trying to figure out who should the Bears hire, we were just having interesting conversations about, well, what about a McCarthy? What about Pete Carroll, et cetera, et cetera. And we were talking about kind of like there are benefits to bringing a truly established and experienced head coach who just knows how to run a team, because not all coordinators know how to do that. Like, that's just a reality. And just running a team is its own beast entirely, outside of just running an offense. And a lot of people who I really respect were kind of saying, listen, there's technically like a 50-50 chance that Ben Johnson can't be a head coach and is just a great X's and O's guy. And even Colin kept trying to push that narrative and say he's an X's and O's guy, yada, yada, yada. And I could see that, and I kept saying, well, listen, we don't know. You don't know until you know, right? And so we can make our predictions, but our predictions are based off of nothing. And now, really, like, I could buy into the 50-50 narrative, but after seeing him talk, after seeing him continue to interact with everyone in the way that he, appears to be running this team from the outside looking in, it's like the chances that I see of him, I don't see it 50-50. I see his chance of failure at like 30%, 40%, 25, whatever the actual hard number is. And so I just think for the first time in Chicago in a long time, there is an actual vision that is not only is the team behind and not fighting, but then you have the leader of this vision who actually knows what he's doing and knows what needs to be done and knows how to pivot and knows how to tinker and knows how to make changes and knows how to reinforce what's already there. So I really, really, really think it's a safe bet that incredibly exciting times are ahead for the Bears. And also, make no mistake about it, that some of these other issues, when they talk about like getting pressure to the quarterback and not and taking sacks, which is something that Caleb did at a very high level, just his when he was pressured, his pressure to sack percentage. Like, let's take a look. This is actually one of my more favorite stats, actually one of my more favorite, like, in advanced analytics, because a lot of this really is going to come on the quarterback, right? It's what are you doing when you're actually getting pressured, but it's not just the quarterback, because a lot of it is also going to deal with the head coach as well, or I should say the offensive coordinator. So in this, for the Bears, obviously the head coach, Ben Johnson, and it's, are they putting their quarterback in a position? And that's why it's tough. You have to figure out in certain moments, are the coordinators doing a good enough job, or the coach doing a good enough job to give this quarterback options when he's being pressured? Are they dealing with the pressure? Is he giving him, easy passes to get the ball out? Is he managing it with the run? Like, what are they doing to kind of help out the quarterback? When is this on? And it's interesting because sometimes it's also just the eliteness of the quarterback himself, the escapability, the mobility, which is, and the physical strength. You see someone like a Josh Allen. Josh Allen's just physically able to just be like, you're not going to pull me down, and I'm going to be able to throw the ball away, or I'm going to be able to scramble, get away because of quickness, like a Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, etc. And so to me, it's like, I can't see how this number doesn't go significantly down with Ben Johnson. I just struggle to see that, because if you take a look, we have someone like Jared Goff, who's at the bottom of this list, and it's not because of his it's 15.9. It's not because of his mobility, right? It's because of his decision. And this is not because of the O-line. Again, this is like when the pressure gets to you, what do you do as a quarterback? So that is what Ben Johnson is also going to be able to help Caleb with. And sometimes it is. Sometimes, especially when you have some of these less mobile quarterbacks, they're just very great at getting the ball out. They throw the ball away. They get rid of the ball. They're not there to try to make something out of nothing constantly. They're not the Josh Allens of the world. Like like Jordan Love is not a big scrambler. And so, he gets rid of it. He lets it rip. Josh Allen is a big scrambler. That's why someone like a Josh Allen down here, it's a little hard, you can't see, is at the bottom, with the best. but you can still see that his scramble rate and the amount of pressure he gets is high, and so it's pretty remarkable. It's a little bit more of a nuanced stat to kind of see, well, sometimes you could have a low percentage, but it's like, are you being pressured that much? What are your, are you scrambling? Like, you kind of have to look at it, but it's more alarming when you have Caleb Williams, who's at the high rate of scrambles, top 4, and yet the worst in, pressure to sack percentage. And so I'm so excited to see how Ben Johnson manages with that beyond just fixing the O-line, because that's going to reduce the pressures. It should, obviously. But in terms of like, what do you do in this moment in time when it is coming to you, right? And it's like for Caleb, when he was with, his first season with the Bears last season, it was so much on just like, hey man, that's why you're the number 1 pick. Hopefully you can just find yourself out of this, just try to scramble by some time and, make a nice throw. And it's like, you need more than that. You need significantly more than that. So, that to me is going to be it'll be a game changer for the offense. And it can't be understated just how, when you take sacks, when you take losses, how much it just absolutely halts and just I think the chances of you scoring a touchdown or scoring on that drive in general, when you take 1 sack, it's just like the percentages just plummet, absolutely, plummet. But it is where it's an interesting stat, and why you kind of have to really kind of follow that thread, because sometimes when you're under pressure, it's better to take the sack than throw an interception, right? Or throw a bad ball. Because you had someone like Jalen Hurts, who was not taking a lot, as much sacks, or had a better pressure to sack percentage in 23, but was, making bad throws under pressure, increased interceptions, trying to make these plays down the field when he needed not be. And then this year he took more sacks, but then his interceptions plummeted. And so he was taking care of the ball, throwing the ball away more, just taking on a sack, because it's just the lesser of evils at that point. So again, it's a balance, and it's constantly kind of moving and troubleshooting and kind of figuring out, what's the situation in any given moment. And so I'm excited to see, that's one of the big things that I'm kind of looking to see, because I try to like zero in and be like, where can I see Caleb improve? And it's going to be that. And again, that's why it's like, it's not just the bottom line number of him, holding on the ball for too long and getting, and getting sacked. And it's the O-line. Like it's a little bit, it's more than that. It's definitely more than that. So, and I just think having like a Ben Johnson there is going to be huge for that. And this is what's actually pretty cool, because we can see Jared Goff as a perfect example of this. Jared Goff, the year before he goes to the Lions, taking care of the ball very well, 14.5 pressure to sack percentage. That's when he still has Sean McVay. Sean McVay is obviously an awesome coach. Then the following year, he's now at the bottom. He's now bottom 9. And that's before Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson was the passing game coordinator, not the offensive coordinator for him in his first year with the Lions. So that's different. He's not the one that's really going to be giving him the answers and managing this game. And so now we see an epic drop. Ben Johnson takes over, becomes the OC. Top 2. Literally drops all the way down to 12.3 under only Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's huge. That's pretty remarkable. Again, following year, 2023, top 5, boom. So I'm going to expect to see major development in that regard, in taking care of the ball, taking less sacks, not only because the O-line should be better, but then just overall dealing with that pressure better. And I'm going to assume that Jared Goff is going to have a worse year from that point, from that position. I mean, maybe not 100%, because he's pretty experienced at this point in his career. So it's all going to depend on how they've kind of evolve as a team and coaching and whatnot. But when someone is dealing poorly with the pressure, whether it's from a passing perspective, sack, interceptions, whatever it may be, And I wish I had. It's not as easy to get those advanced analytics of quarterbacks under pressure in terms of passing. Someone knows how to a good, reliable way to get that. It's sometimes it's available, sometimes it's not. So if anyone has a good website to use, please definitely let me know. I've tried to find them, and any of the sites that I've used in the past, I haven't loved the breakdowns of it, and it seems a little bit trickier. And because again, I don't want to act like you can just look at this number as proof of greatness of this of that. It's definitely a little bit more of a nuanced stat, and sometimes it can really mean something big, and sometimes it can't. Again, at Jordan Love is kind of a decent example of that. And as well as looking at a Jared Goff compared to say like a Josh Allen, who we know is going to use his legs and scramble significantly more. Like again, in this season 23, he had 58 scrambles for Josh Allen. Jared Goff had 8. And so he's had 58, so obviously a ton more scrambles and has a significantly, better 10% pressure to sack percentage compared to 13.9, which makes it just all the more impressive when you're just looking at the volume. If someone has like, a 12 pressure to sack percentage, and they've only scrambled like 5 times or something, like it's a little different. But when you see someone like a Jared Goff who's going to still drop back with a lot of pressure, because again, you look at Josh Allen, 259, 58 scrambles, 266 dropbacks with pressure, and only 8 scrambles. It's just, again, you have to try to do your best to put this all in context, and it's not always easy to look at things retroactively because you have to figure out, well, who was playing for them, what did their O-line look like. It's not 100%, but sometimes if you're being pressured game after game, 5, 6, a million times a game, it starts to add up more. Like it all depends on how some of these things unfold. But I just think like that to me is going to be one of the big things that I'm going to really be hyper focused on going into this season, that I expect that a high level coordinator like Ben Johnson is going to very quickly put Caleb Williams in a position to be better. And if he's not, that's what's actually going to be interesting, because I have faith. I'm not going to look at him and be like, oh, is Ben Johnson doing a good enough job? It's going to be no. I know he's doing a good enough job. And at that point, I wouldn't care what the O-line is doing, whether they're able to 100% fix the O-line or not. It would fall on Caleb, which is good, because then if the problem's solved, it's solved. And if it's not, then at least we've isolated the source. We figure out, okay, this is more about Caleb than the situation, which is important. You have to be able to isolate the strengths and the weaknesses and figure out what are the strengths that you can increase even more, what are the weaknesses that you can elevate, and what are some of the weaknesses that you got to really do your best to just kind of sweep under the rug. We got to minimize this to the best of our abilities, because not all weaknesses can evolve. So that's where the development actually comes in, and that's why you'd be hard pressed to find any development last season. That's why I keep saying this season is Caleb Williams' rookie year, man. This coming season. All right. He has a real coach. He has a real guy that knows what to do. Who's going to put him in positions to succeed. And he's going to continue to develop, and not only off the field in terms of practices and whatnot, which I guess technically on the field, but then actually in the game, when you're having a coach who's like, I'm going to be able to put you in positions to succeed. And when things are kind of getting a little crazy, I'm still going to give you a list of things that you can do, essentially. And then plan D is going to be, all right, Caleb, try to do something. But when things are off script, I'm still giving you A, B, and C. I'm still giving you a checklist of the things that you have to do. And then if those things aren't there, boom, plan D. Come on, buddy. That's why we're trying to see, are you a $250 million quarterback or not? Like, let's do it. So that excites me personally. That gets me excited. So be on the lookout for that aspect of his game that's beyond just the O-line. And again, it's more than just holding on to the ball too. Like it's, a coordinator needs to give you some options. They need to put you in that position. Coaching matters so massively. So I'm excited, man. It feels like the season's about to, honestly, for whatever reason, as at the moment of me filming this video, it's like, it feels like the season's about to start like in a month or so. And I'm like, bro, you got a long time. Like, we got a lot of months, like 6 months, man, until this game goes off. So, you got to settle down some of the excitement. But when I look at some of these other things and really think about the ways that Caleb can evolve and be better, and how Ben Johnson will be suited to actually do that, and then what that means for this team. I'm excited. I'm excited. Those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Chicago Bears, Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, and kind of the moves that they're making to finally right this ship, once and for all? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.